At the family gift exchange, I handed my sister a letter. I'd paid for her final semester so she could graduate on time. She read it, looked around, and said, "He thinks money can make up for the fact that we don't need him?" The room laughed. I took the letter back and said, "Guess you'll have time off next spring." 15 minutes later, she was crying in the hall. My parents' faces paled. "But we're family." My sister always expects something expensive from me: jewelry, designer crap, cash if she's really lazy about pretending. This year, I gave her something better. Or at least I thought I did. When it was my turn to give out gifts, I walked over and handed Megan a plain white envelope. No wrapping. No ribbon. Just her name on it in black ink. She looked confused. Then suspicious. I sat back down. She opened it. Pulled out the letter. Read it once. Then again, slower. Inside was a one-paragraph note I'd written, explaining how I'd found out she was $8,300 short on tuition, how she'd already missed her first payment for spring semester, and how I'd paid the whole thing off so she could graduate on time. I even included a copy of the transaction and the confirmation from her university. She finished reading. Looked up. Dead quiet in the room. Then she laughed. Not a nervous laugh. Not a grateful laugh. An ugly, mocking laugh. She held up the letter like it was a joke and said, "He thinks money can make up for the fact that he doesn't need us?" Everyone laughed with her. My dad actually clapped. My mom covered her mouth, eyes watering with laughter. Even Grandma Susan let out a little snort, like Megan had just won the round. I didn't say a word. I just stared at all of them. Then I leaned forward, reached out, and calmly took the letter back. I said, "I guess you'll have some free time next spring." And that was the moment the room flipped. The laughter stopped. My sister's smile froze. My dad's face shifted like someone had yanked a rug out from under him. My mom whispered something I didn't hear. Megan just stared at me, like she didn't understand what had just happened. 15 minutes later, I passed the hallway on my way to the front door. Megan was sitting on the floor, crying. My mom was kneeling next to her, trying to comfort her. My dad was pacing. Both grandmothers were sitting on the stairs, watching, like they couldn't decide if this was drama or tragedy. I opened the front door. My dad stepped in front of it. "Where do you think you're going?" he said. I told him I was leaving. He said, "Not after that little performance. You ruined Christmas." My mom nodded behind him. Megan called out, "You're seriously just leaving?" I looked at all of them. The hallway. The staircase. The fake garland that still had dust on it from last year. I closed the door, took off my coat, walked back to the table, and sat down. Everyone followed. I said, "Here's how it's going to be now." Nobody moved. My sister was still red-faced, sniffling, trying to save whatever pride she had left. My mom looked like she couldn't decide whether to cry or slap me. My dad looked like he was winding up for one of his fake righteous monologues, but I wasn't giving him the chance. I stayed seated calm, like I wasn't the one who'd just flipped the entire room upside down. I started with the basics. I said, "For the past few years, I've been the emergency fund for this family. Whether you admit it or not, you've all gotten comfortable with the idea that if something goes wrong, Kevin will fix it. Megan's tuition? Fixed it. Groceries when Dad lost his job? Fixed. New washer, new fridge, a bunch of plane tickets, 2 cars you couldn't afford to repair. Fixed, fixed, fixed." I looked at each of them one by one. No one argued. Just blank stares. I leaned back in my chair. "That ends tonight." I let it sit for a second. Megan looked down at her lap. My mom shook her head slowly. My dad's jaw tensed like he wanted to punch something but knew he couldn't afford to break another wall. Then I added, "Oh, and since we're all being honest now, you two owe me $3,000. I loaned it to you last spring when you said you'd hit a rough patch. You promised you'd pay it back in a few months." My dad immediately cut in. "We said we would, and we will." I nodded. "Good. I'd like to see that happen. But I'll be honest with you, I've written it off in my head already." That hit harder than I expected. My mom flinched a little, like the thought of me not trusting them with money was more insulting than anything else that had happened all night. My dad said, "So you think we're thieves now?" "No," I said. "I think you're comfortable. Comfortable owing me things. Comfortable assuming I'll always be around to keep the lights on." Then I looked at Megan. "And you, if you want to finish school, you'll get a job. Or maybe Mom and Dad will help this time. You know, like parents usually do. She looked at my mom, then at my dad. No one volunteered. I just sat there, watching. My mom finally said, "This isn't how family works, Kevin. We don't threaten each other." I smiled a little. "That's funny, because 5 minutes ago you laughed at me in front of both of your mothers and called me selfish when I backed away." I didn't see a whole lot of family loyalty then. That's when Grandma Joyce, who'd been quiet the whole time, spoke up. She looked straight at my mom and said, "He's right, you know. I saw how you all laughed. I saw what you did. And don't think I forgot how you borrowed money from me and never paid it back either." Everyone's heads turned. My mom's face went white. Then Grandma Susan chimed in. "I always thought you spoiled Megan too much. And now look." She bit the hand that fed her and cried when it stopped. You could feel the ground shifting. The two matriarchs weren't playing anymore. My dad stood up again, more cautiously this time. He said, "So what, you're just done with us now?" "No. I'm just done being used." He called me selfish. I shrugged. If standing up for myself makes me selfish, then yeah, I guess I am. But if you don't like these new terms, you can go ahead and figure things out on your own. And when you need help next time, don't call me. Megan finally broke her silence. She said she'd get a job. She sounded miserable about it, like the idea of working retail was beneath her. My mom mumbled something about trying to help. My dad didn't say anything. I stood up, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a drink. No one followed. No one said a word. But I knew this wasn't over. Not by a long shot. I didn't hear from them for days. No apology. No explanation. Just silence, like they were hoping if they ignored the fallout long enough, I'd crawl back and pretend it never happened. The first message came from my mom. 5 words. "I hope you're proud of yourself." That was it. Not a question. Not even a passive-aggressive essay like she usually sends. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. She wasn't reaching out to make peace, she was taking a swing without looking me in the eye. My phone stayed quiet after that. Megan went completely dark. My dad, the king of pretending nothing's wrong, stayed on brand and didn't acknowledge me at all. They must have thought this was still salvageable. That I'd calm down, realize how harsh I was, and show up at the next birthday or Sunday dinner with my wallet in hand like usual. They weren't ready for a version of me that didn't need them, and didn't want to. A week later, Grandma Joyce called. She didn't ask how I was or dance around it. She just said, "We're having lunch. I'll pick you up." She showed up right on time, looking like she'd been waiting for this moment since Thanksgiving. We sat down at a diner near my apartment, and the second we ordered, she said, "Your parents are in a mess, and they don't want you to know." Apparently, things had been unraveling fast. My mom was behind on 2 credit cards. My dad's freelance work had dried up again. Megan had been rejected from every internship she applied to because her transcripts still showed a financial hold, and she hadn't told anyone she was on the verge of getting dropped. The best part? They tried to cover all of it with the usual fake confidence, as if they had a plan. Joyce said, "They want you to come back and pretend nothing happened. Smile, eat dinner, maybe bring a gift. But they've got nothing to offer except guilt." I nodded. Didn't say much. I was more interested in what they'd do next, now that the cash machine was unplugged. She paused, then added, "Oh, and your mom's been telling people you're not doing well. That you snapped under pressure. That maybe you need time off, a vacation, therapy. She's painting you as the broken one." I laughed. Out loud. I said, "She'd rather tell people I'm unstable than admit she depended on me to raise her second kid." Joyce didn't laugh. She looked tired. She said, "They won't apologize. Not because they don't feel guilty, but because they don't want to owe you that too." Then she said something that stuck with me. "You're the only adult in that family. And they hate that." When I got home that night, there were 3 unread messages from Megan. The first said, "Hey." The second said, "Can we talk?" The third said, "I got a job. At Lark. It's retail, but it's something." Lark was that weird off-brand fashion store at the edge of the mall. It was the kind of place where everything was on sale because no one wanted to pay full price for a rhinestone hoodie. I knew she was miserable. But I didn't respond. The next message was from my mom, 3 days later. "We're proud of you for being responsible. Hope you can forgive us soon." I didn't answer that either. Forgiveness is a transaction. And they were already too far in debt. Then my dad sent something weird. A photo. It was our dinner table, set for 5. One chair empty, mine. The caption just said, "You belong here." Suddenly, they wanted to play the emotional card. The same people who laughed when I tried to help were now acting like I'd abandoned a sinking ship. Like I owed them my loyalty just because we share a last name. Then came the voicemail. Megan's voice. Crying again. But different this time. Less performative, more desperate. She said she couldn't make her rent. That her job barely paid enough for gas. That she didn't know how she was supposed to focus on school while juggling everything. And then she said something I didn't expect. "I miss how things used to be." I stood there listening to it on loop. Yeah. I miss how things used to be, too. Back when she said thank you. Back when my parents remembered who paid for the roof over their heads. But those days were gone. And none of them knew yet just how deep this was going to cut. The voicemails sat in my inbox for 3 days. I didn't delete it, didn't respond, just let it hang there like a photo from a time I didn't really believe existed anymore. Megan wanted things to go back to normal. But the truth was, there never was a normal. There was just me paying for silence. Then, out of nowhere, my mom showed up at my door. She didn't call ahead. She buzzed the building like she was a delivery driver. I almost didn't open it, but I was curious. She looked smaller in person, like the situation had chipped away at her. Still had that expression like she was about to say something wise and manipulative. She stepped inside without asking and said, "We need to talk." I said, "Talk." She told me Megan was drowning. That the job was barely enough. That she was failing her classes now. That the financial office wouldn't let her register for finals without payment. She kept trying to steer it back to family. To how proud they were of me. To how much they loved me. I let her talk. Then I told her the price. "You want help? Fine. But I'm not paying for anyone else's mistakes anymore. You two are her parents. Not me." She didn't respond. So I kept going. "You want Megan to graduate? Then you and Dad figure it out. Sell something. Cancel your weekend getaways. Skip your anniversary dinner. Get creative." She started to say something, probably about how hard they had it. I cut in. "Also, the $3,000 you owe me, I'm going to need that by the end of the year." Her face dropped like I'd slapped her. I added, "I know you won't have it. But I'm not pretending anymore. Every time you dodge it, I'll remember exactly what this family thinks I'm worth." She started to cry. Said it wasn't fair. That I was punishing all of them for one moment of laughter. I said, "No, I'm punishing you for a decade of pretending your financial problems were my responsibility." She left without another word. A week later, Megan called. Not text. Not voicemail. She actually called. She said she understood. That she didn't expect help. That she just wanted me to know she'd gotten a second job tutoring kids after school and was talking to financial aid. Said she wasn't asking for money, just a second chance at being a better sister. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no either. I told her, "We'll see." Then something strange happened. Grandma Joyce invited me over. When I got there, she was sitting in her living room with a smile that looked way too satisfied. She handed me a folder. Inside were printouts, screenshots of old text messages, receipts, emails. All of it from the past 5 years. All of it proof of the money I'd spent on my family, the loans, the gifts, the repairs. A full dossier. I said, "What is this?" She said, "Evidence. In case they try to rewrite history." Then she told me that Grandma Susan had decided to do her own version of cutting the cord. She was updating her will. Quietly. Reducing the amount going to my parents. Increasing the portion going to me. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. But it was happening. Joyce leaned back and said, "We're tired of watching you be used. If they don't want to change, we will." It wasn't revenge. It wasn't victory. It was justice. And it was just getting started. By mid-February, I'd gotten used to the quiet. No more random calls from my mom asking if I could just cover this one thing. No texts from my dad pretending to ask how I'm doing when he was really building up to another favor. No fake emergencies. No guilt trips. It was the most peaceful start to a year I've ever had. Megan hadn't messaged since the voicemail. I saw her twice, accidentally, Once at Lark, behind the counter, wearing that black company t-shirt and folding hoodies that nobody ever buys. She didn't see me. Or maybe she did, and just didn't want to deal with it. The second time, I spotted her across the parking lot of a tutoring center, carrying a plastic container of what looked like art supplies. She looked exhausted. Not in a performative way, really tired. Like life had finally caught up to her. She was working. She was dealing with it. That part, at least I respected. Then, one night around 9 p.m., I got a text from my dad. "You really don't need us, do you?" No punctuation. No context. I stared at it for a few minutes. I didn't answer. Because it wasn't a question. It was him realizing, finally, that I'd outgrown their version of family. That their control didn't work anymore. That I had stepped outside the system they built, where I fund the chaos, and they pretend it's love. Meanwhile, things were shifting in the background. Grandma Susan called to say she was finalizing some paperwork and wanted to make sure my address was updated. I knew what that meant. She was serious about what she'd said last time. I didn't press. Grandma Joyce had gone colder with my mom too. Apparently, she confronted her about the whole Kevin's unstable story she was pushing around to the family. Told her that if she didn't stop, she'd start correcting the narrative at every family gathering from here on out. I almost wished I could have been there for that. Then, another call from Joyce. She said Grandma Susan was hosting dinner. Small. Family only. "You should come," she said. "It's time." I asked who'd be there. She didn't hesitate. Everyone. I nearly said no. Everything in me was ready to burn that last bridge and let them sit in the ashes. But something about the way she said it made me think this wasn't about peace. This was about power. About letting them see that I didn't need to yell to be heard anymore. So I went. Susan's house looked exactly the same. Same wreath from 5 Christmases ago. Same scented candles. My mom opened the door. She didn't say hi right away, just looked at me like she wasn't sure how this was going to go. Then she stepped aside to let me in. My dad was already sitting at the table like he didn't remember anything that had happened. Megan was there too, hair tied back, barely looking up from her water glass. Neither of them made the first move. Dinner was awkward. Joyce tried to cut the tension with small talk about some cousin's baby. Nobody cared. Everyone was waiting. Then Grandma Susan, from the head of the table, turned to Megan and asked, "How's work?" Megan looked up and said, "Tiring." Then, quieter, "But I'm doing it. I'm paying. Little by little." She glanced at me, just once. Not asking for anything. Just acknowledging. My mom chimed in a few minutes later. She said they'd been thinking a lot about what happened. That maybe they'd laughed because they didn't know how to handle being called out like that. She used words like reflecting and appreciating and moving forward. She didn't say sorry. My dad added, "We know we owe you. We're figuring it out." He didn't mention the $3,000 specifically, but we both knew what he meant. I didn't say anything. There was nothing left to say. Then Susan leaned forward, rested her elbows on the table, and said, "This is your moment to start over. And if you screw it up, don't expect either of us," she looked at Joyce, "to protect you from it." They nodded like kids being scolded. After dinner, as I was putting on my coat, Megan handed me an envelope. I raised an eyebrow. She said it wasn't money. Inside was a card. Not store-bought. Just plain cardstock with handwriting. It said, "I know I messed it up. I said things I can't take back. You gave me more than I deserved, and I threw it in your face. I'm not asking for help. I just want to earn the right to be your sister again. I'm sorry." There was no signature. Just her. I didn't say anything. I just walked out, envelope in hand. We weren't healed. Not even close. But the hierarchy had changed. I wasn't their safety net anymore. I was something else now. Their reminder. Spring showed up early, like it was tired of winter too. The air got warmer, everything smelled like wet pavement and thawed dirt, and people started pretending like the year hadn't opened with a full-blown implosion in my family. But I remembered. I remembered all of it. And more importantly, I remembered who they were when I finally stopped carrying the weight for them. Megan scraped through the semester. She didn't message me about it, but Grandma Joyce kept me in the loop. Passed all her classes. Started interning somewhere unpaid, part-time, with a 90-minute commute each way. I didn't say anything to her. Not then. But I saw her once outside the bus stop near my place. She was standing there in cheap flats, half asleep, holding a Tupperware container like it was her last possession. She looked like someone who finally understood what it meant to fight for something. I didn't wave. I just watched her go. Quietly. The thing about people who've coasted their whole lives is, they either crumble when things get hard or they evolve. Megan didn't crumble. She suffered, but she didn't break. That mattered more to me than an apology ever would. My parents, though? Nothing changed. The $3,000 they owed me became this ghost that no one acknowledged. They talked around it like it was some unspeakable word. No. We're working on it. No. We haven't forgotten. Not even an empty promise to stall me. It was like they believed that if they never said it again, it would disappear. I could have brought it up. But I didn't. I wanted to see how long they'd pretend. They were playing the long game, but so was I. Instead, my dad kept sending me links to articles he thought I'd like. My mom tried nostalgia, old family photos, recipes I used to like, comments about. Those were good times. All harmless on the surface. But I knew what it was. It was currency. Trying to rebuild something without paying for the damage they caused. That card Megan gave me, the one with her apology? I still have it. It's in the drawer with my passport and the title to my car. I don't read it often, but I haven't thrown it out either. Because it wasn't about making things even, it was her way of saying she finally saw the wreckage she'd helped cause. Meanwhile, Susan followed through on her will change. Joyce told me later my mom found out and didn't take it well. She apparently cornered Susan during a family dinner and tried to guilt her, asking why she was cutting her own daughter out. Susan just told her, "Because Kevin was there when you weren't." My mom called me that night. She didn't mention the will directly. Just danced around it. Said something like, "I hope you don't think we've been ungrateful." I said, "You still haven't paid me back." She was silent for so long I thought the line dropped. Then she said, "We will. Soon." But she said it too carefully. Like it was rehearsed. That was 3 months ago. I haven't seen a dime. It's not about the money anymore. It's about the principle. And I don't forget. I won't forget. Now we talk occasionally. Holidays. Birthdays. Surface level things. I'm polite. Cordial. But there's a distance they can't close anymore. That trust, that unspoken loyalty I used to give freely? It's gone. Burned out. And I'm not rebuilding it for them. Megan's still working. Still tired. But she's never asked for a cent. She doesn't treat me like the solution anymore. That's why I've started replying to her messages again. We're not close, but we're rebuilding. Slowly. Authentically. My parents still act like everything's back to normal. But it's not. And it never will be. Because this version of me, the one they made when they laughed that night, is not the one who picks up the pieces for everyone else. Not anymore.